A lot of brokerage comparisons focus on details that sound important, but may not actually matter for how most people invest. After using these platforms for over a decade, I learned there are really 4 areas that affect the final decision: account types, fees and currency conversion, investment products and features, and the platform experience. So in this video, I'm putting Canadian brokerages through an elimination round using those 4 categories. At the end, I will show who made it through, who each platform is best for, and which one I would personally use as my foundation. So account types is the first portion of this round. We've got tax advantage accounts, one of the primary drivers to be able to save money. Taxes is a huge factor. And so being able to get different types of government programs really helps in the long run, and I would say is the game changer for most people. When it comes to these types of areas, the big banks, all of the big banks, I would say generally from my research has been able to have all of those various types of accounts. And so they survived this round. I'm not going to even focus on targeting one in particular. The next one we have is Questrade. So we can see here that Questrade does have all of the various major accounts that you would need. They have a variety of various accounts that you can have. One thing that you can note here that isn't visible is the tax-free savings account. There is the advantage to be able to pull on a thing called margin power from your TFSA when you have a margin account opened. So you can have the margin power of your TFSA. I'm not saying this because everyone should use margin, but just being able to have a bonus feature like that is worth mentioning here. So I would say that Questrade definitely survives this round. Now getting into Wealthsimple. This is the next one on our list. Again, it has that TFSA advantage where you can use that margin power. In regards to the account types, you can see it has, again, the same types of accounts as Questrade. All of the major tax advantage accounts it has here. Getting into the next one, we have MooMoo. MooMoo, unfortunately, does not have those accounts. It has a TFSA and an RRSP. So I am sorry to say, MooMoo, you are eliminated from this race just because of that reason alone. It is the most important thing, and I do not want to have a TFSA account with MooMoo, and I do not want to have, an RESP with Questrade and then have another account somewhere else. If I am an average investor who has a profession and spends my life doing things, I do not want to waste my time, having to learn 2 different platforms. But in regards to MooMoo's pricing and other features, they tend to be very competitive. So I would say it's very difficult for them to say goodbye, but I have to say goodbye here. Next on the list is interactive brokers. We have RRSPs, RIFs, TFSAs, and FHSAs. They are missing a few, like the Registered Education Savings Plan or a LIRA if you have like a pension account that you manage. So I would say interactive brokers would be eliminated, but I am actually going to keep them around as the wild card. So in conclusion, MooMoo has been eliminated. We have the big banks that have survived. We have Questrade that survives. We have Wealthsimple that survives. And we have interactive brokers that survives for a wild card reason, which we will get to at the end. And if you are considering any of these products, use my link in the description to secure a lockup bonus. Consider sticking around to the end where I break down all of my thoughts on these various platforms and what each is good for. So now moving into round 2, we're getting into the fees, specifically fees around the trades and conversion fees, because a lot of people in Canada are usually converting to USD and buying US securities. These are the very largest forms of fees. There are other types of fees, but I'm getting into just the key ones that focus around average investors. So getting into it, big banks, unfortunately, do not continue on in regards to this round because they have higher fees. A lot of them around $10 per trade. That is astronomical. I will give one exception, and that is for National Bank, because they do not have They do not have those fees that are for trades with ETFs and stocks. You are able to do those trades, but there is a caveat here. They do have an annual fee, but that can also be avoided. So they have an annual fee of $100, but if you have more than $20,000 in an account, or you're under 30, or one of their other reasons why you can avoid that fee and you can get it waived, that is a possibility of an option. So National Bank does pass this portion of the round. National Bank, when it comes to conversion fees, they have a technique. There's a technique that you can use. It's called Norbert's Gambit, and you can use it with some of the other platforms that I'll mention down below. But Norbert's Gambit is essentially where you go into the stock market and you're able to pull a maneuver off where you're able to get around $10 of a total cost for being able to convert CAD to USD or USD to CAD. You can look that up later. So basically, if you're trading anything over $1,000, Norbert's Gambit tends to be something that actually saves you in those conversion fees. It doesn't matter if it's $1 million, you're always going to pay that $10. If it's less, paying $10, a 1.5% conversion fee tends to not necessarily be that bad. So in regards to National Bank, again, fees right on point. Good job, National Bank. Hopefully those other banks catch up to you. Now getting into Questrade, we've got 0 commissions. Again, fantastic that Questrade was able to do that. So you're not going to pay for those stocks or those ETFs, which is nice. But again, it has that conversion, but thankfully it has the ability to use Norbert's Gambit. And so for me, I would say that Questrade again passes this round. Getting into the next one, we have Wealthsimple. Now, Wealthsimple has 0 commissions as well. Woohoo, great. But there is a caveat to this. The main issue that I have with Wealthsimple is when it comes to US investing, it is extremely difficult unless you have a USD account. I don't know why they did this, but if you have a USD account, then you're going to be okay. You can use the Norbert's Gambit type of method just like the other ones. But if you don't have a USD account, which a USD account with Wealthsimple is $10 a month, unless you have $100,000 or more. So then, that makes it very difficult to invest in US securities. If you buy a security with Wealthsimple and you pay that 1.5% exchange fee every time you buy that security, and then when you sell that security, could you imagine rebalancing your portfolio and you're buying for the 1.5 and then you're selling for the 1.5 and then you're buying again for another 1.5? That gets to be a little bit ridiculous. So unless you have that USD account, unless you have enough in there, I would say that Wealthsimple isn't going to make it, but they are going to make it if you are investing within CAD or you have a large enough amount. So I would say they tripped along the way, but they're passing this round just barely. So there's Wealthsimple for you. The next one on the list is Interactive Brokers. Interactive Brokers has a very low commission. They're not trying to, get out there and market themselves as 0 commission, but their commission is so low that I would say it's negligible, because whenever I've traded on Interactive Brokers, I look at the fee and I'm like, that's so small. As well, when I look at the conversion that they have with the FX types of transactions, paying 0.03% on a conversion from CAD to USD is a minimal amount. So in regards to their conversion fees, it's so low that in some cases it can actually be cheaper than the other ones. So for Interactive Brokers, I would say they pass that portion of it. But again, they're a wild card because they don't have the various accounts, which is the number one reason why I would get into using an account. So I would not use it for the very first pick, and it is a very wild card case why I think they are a good fit. So round 2 results are, we've got the big banks which are eliminated except for the National Bank. Wealthsimple survives, but just barely, and mainly because it's for Canadian investing or people that have larger accounts. Questrade, I would say, survives and is strong and all well-rounded. Interactive Brokers survives, but because of the various accounts, it really has that wild card status and is not something that I would use as my main account. And if you're finding value out of this video, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe so that I can give you more breakdowns of how these various tools are used in the future. Getting into round 3, we've got investment products and features. So this section is for, regular types of investors. I don't want to compare features that do not necessarily relate to other things that do not relate to average investors. One of those regular things I would say is DRIP, or dividend reinvesting plan. Being able to take your dividends and have those reinvest automatically every time a dividend payment is paid out is wonderful. And again, all of those platforms tend to have it. Again, National Bank, I'm not going to be able to comment in this section on it because I do not use National Bank and I do not know how National Bank works that way, as well as the fourth round, I'm not going to be able to comment on the National Bank. But in regards to Questrade, Interactive Brokers, and Wealthsimple, they all have it. All 3 of them, they support the fractional shares. But Questrade only supports the US stocks and ETFs, so there's a bit of a condition there. When it comes to reoccurring investments, and so that's being able to just have those, when you have funds that go into the account, just being able to automatically purchase those various types of investments that you want on a regular reoccurring basis, they all have that. Interactive Brokers and Questrade, they have a thing called custom indexing, which for some people that can be beneficial because, maybe you want to invest in, the S&P 500, but you don't want to invest in weapons. That's something that you can do through those 2 various platforms. So you can make a custom ETF. Owning things like physical gold, if some people are into that, Questrade tends to be the winner in regards to that. I don't think Interactive Brokers is too good in that regard, and Wealthsimple, I believe it doesn't have the option. When it comes to GICs, Questrade has a variety of GICs that you can get. Wealthsimple does not have this. As well, Interactive Brokers doesn't have this. If you're into futures trading, which I think average investors are not, but I would say that Interactive Brokers does have this, Questrade does not, and Wealthsimple claims they have it in a beta version, but it is very limited and lackluster. I would not suggest using them for futures trades. In regards to options trades, I would say Interactive Brokers has the most extensive tool features that you would need to be able to do options trading. Again, most people are not getting into this. I would say Questrade has a very average kind of platform for it. I would say Wealthsimple is a little too simplistic in regards to how their platform works when it comes to options trading and what you would want to pay attention to. And they're also limited to the US securities. So again, unless you have that USD account, I would say that you're going to be paying a lot of fees in regards to those options trades. When it comes to other features, there's not really much more that I need to cover there. So now we can see when it comes to features, all 3 of them essentially are passing in that regard. They're all really trying to be competitive with each other. Moving on to the 4th and the final round, we've got the platforms. So when it comes to the platforms, there are 3 types of platforms that you can use. One is a computer application that's downloaded onto your computer, a software which is like a workstation that you can really customize and see everything. Again, more for that advanced type of trader. So that's only available with Questrade and Interactive Brokers. Wealthsimple does not have this, but the other 2 platforms is using the web-based platform and using the mobile device, and all 3 of them have it. I found that all 3 of them are just totally fine and fantastic for all 3 of those purposes. I would say that there's maybe little types of advantages to using one over the other, but overall, I would say the platforms generally for these 3 are fairly reasonable. I would say that if you're wanting to not necessarily get too complicated, and you never will get complicated with it, Wealthsimple is definitely the easiest platform to use in regards to this category, and they pride themselves on having a really streamlined process. Questrade, I would say, is the well-rounded option, which tends to have the best of both worlds. And that to me is an advantage because I like to have the flexibility and the diversity that can come with those various accounts. When it comes to Interactive Brokers, it is well suited for those advanced traders. That trader workstation has a lot of meat built into it, and I'm not going to get into the details of that because it will make this video way too long. But if you're an advanced trader, or let's just say you start with something like Questrade and you're finding those limitations somewhere, that's where Interactive Brokers most likely has those limitations removed, and they have the features built into them. So what is my take on this process now that we've completed all 4 rounds? My take is we've got the National Bank. And the National Bank, I would say, if you are banking with National Bank, maybe you want to consider that platform as an option. But in regards to how the features are laid out and stuff like that, I can't comment on that there. When it comes to the features in regards to simplicity, I would say Wealthsimple is the best in that regard. I would say they're good for beginner to also just wanting to stay beginner level and not ever wanting to advance past that. I would say Wealthsimple is good in that regard, but I would really pay attention to how those fees are structured and avoid using products and services that will basically trigger those high fees, because ultimately you're trying to have those investments grow and maximize. Now, in regards to Questrade, I would say that they're right in the middle. They are for the average investor. They are not necessarily built simplistically, but they are simple enough that if you were to use their platform, it would not overwhelm you or get confusing, as well as giving you extra features and different types of products and fees and stuff like that that actually make them very, very competitive. I find that Questrade is the place that I find to be the most beneficial for most people, because then they get the flexibility of staying and coasting at that beginner stage or advancing if they want to advance down the road. Interactive Brokers is not necessarily a platform that I would use for most people, because Interactive Brokers does not have those tax advantage accounts. So here's the wild card factor. Unless you're bumping into a problem that you have with something like Questrade, where there's a particular strategy or there's some kind of feature that you're not able to perform as well, that you've already maxed out all of those various types of tax advantage accounts, then you might want to look at using a margin account through something like Interactive Brokers and taking advantage of those additional features, because having those tax advantage accounts is very, very critical. Or maybe you want to take advantage of their tax-free savings account or something like that, and have just that with them and something with another. But again, you have to learn 2 platforms, and Interactive Brokers is not necessarily the easiest platform to work with in comparison to the 3. So I would say that Interactive Brokers, in my opinion, is really not beneficial unless you're getting into, having all of those various accounts that are already maxed out and really getting into something that's a little bit more complex. So that's that wild card factor. I hope this was helpful to you, and just to give you that wrap up ending to let you know how I personally use these. I personally use Questrade. That is the platform that I use. I find Questrade to be one of the best platforms overall, well-rounded. It's where I have all of my various types of tax advantage accounts. I do use the other 2 as well. I do use Wealthsimple. I use it more so for emergency fund and short-term investing, because I'm able to keep everything in the Canadian account. I find it very simple. I like to have those types of investments separate from the others, so I'm not necessarily looking at them the same way. And so it's not too much of a learning curve to have Wealthsimple tied in there as well too. And then when it comes to Interactive Brokers, once everything is maxed out, then I'm putting funds into Interactive Brokers, being able to take advantage of a few different strategies and things that I wasn't necessarily able to do with Questrade, but something that I found to be beneficial through Interactive Brokers. If you never bump into that problem, I would say it is not necessarily something that I would dabble into. So if this has helped you understand Canadian brokerage accounts, hit that like button and subscribe, and check the description for sign up links or bonuses if you're thinking about opening up one of these accounts. But before you switch platforms, remember this: do not pick a broker just because someone online says it is the best. Pick the broker that fits your account types, your investment behavior, and your long-term plan, because the right platform should make investing easier and not more complicated. See you in the next video.